Attention sports teams. Let us introduce you to the best fan engagement tool in the game, .vote. By getting a .vote web address for your team, you can allow fans to engage and interact with big-time decisions. In a single click, not only can fans make their opinions heard, but sports teams get a better understanding of their fans' interests. Keep your fans engaged. Simply visit GoDaddy.com today, type in the desired name of your web address, and let the voting begin.
Are the Jaguars for real? The Dolphins are in quarterback jail, and the Chiefs owners the only winners of their new stadium deal. All that and more straight ahead on a fresh edition of Gordon Damer on Sports. Welcome in. It is a fresh edition of Gordon Damer on Sports. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays to everyone out there. We got a lot to get into on this edition of the podcast. We'll get to a lot of NFL stories, the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to the NFL. But before we get to any of that, please do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, whatever platform you're taking the podcast in on. It really does help us grow as we move into 2026. Like the episode, share the episode, and certainly subscribe. All right, let's get into it, and let's start with the headline. And I don't know if even I 100% believe this. This might be recency bias, but I'm starting to think that maybe the Jacksonville Jaguars are the team to beat in the AFC this year. I know that might sound a little ridiculous to have skepticism about a team that is rolling right now. 6 straight wins. They just walked into Mile High, punched the Broncos in the mouth, and their quarterback might finally be turning out to be the guy that we thought he was going to be when he started his NFL career. He's playing the cleanest football of his career, and I get that there's skepticism about this just being the latest flavor of the month, but the skepticism is kind of the point in the AFC. The AFC has never been more wide open. With the Chiefs not being there, it feels like every single couple of weeks this year, there's been a fresh team that's the team to beat, right? At one point, it was the Patriots. At one point, it was the Broncos. At one point, it was the Bills. One point, it's the Chargers. And now it's starting to feel like it might be Jacksonville. And when you get to why it might be Jacksonville, at some point, you have to come to why not the Jaguars, right? Like, what do they lack that everybody else has? And this past week was different because that was just not a win. That was a statement performance, right? The Broncos had not lost a home game since last year. They came into that game having won 11 in a row, and they were certainly riding that trend of the team to beat in the AFC this year. It's going to be the Broncos. And the Jaguars didn't just go in there and win the game. They dismantled. They dominated that game. 34-20 is the final score, and that's what teams do when they kind of have their breakout moment. We've mentioned this before, right? This is the point of the season where a team is going to get hot and go on a run, and that very well could be the Jaguars. And a big part of that is that Trevor Lawrence is in command. You know, when he was coming out in the draft, he was supposed to be can't miss, the next Andrew Luck. And at least so far, up until this year, that's exactly what he's done. He got stuck with Urban Meyer that first season, and it's been a lot of 1 step forward, 2 steps back, and you've questioned, I know I have, whether Trevor Lawrence would ever be that guy. But he is playing the best, cleanest football of really any stretch in his NFL career. Not pretty good, not he's showing some flashes. This is the best stretch of his career. And think about what that means moving forward. Now, it's only 4 games, so it might be a bit of a small sample size. But in that sample size, 12 touchdowns, no interceptions, no turnovers of any kind, and that has been a massive problem for him so far in his career. Over those 4 games, he's thrown for over 1,000 yards, and he's been a dual threat. He's been adding value with his legs. Now, I know what you're probably saying, Gordon, it's 4 games. Let's not get carried away, right? That's a pretty small sample size. But what happens at this time of year? A team plays a certain way for the first 3 quarters and then gets hot, then gets on that hot streak. And they ride it through the postseason. And when it comes to Lawrence, he can be that guy. I think there are reasons to believe that this stretch is finally him finding his NFL capabilities. This is what happens when a quarterback finally stops thinking and processing and is just playing. And I think a lot of that goes to, you've seen a lot of this, Liam Cohen and his system. anyone who watched what he did last year with Baker Mayfield and the difference in Mayfield this year with Tampa Bay, a lot of people said this was not going to be instant, right? Like the word before the season was they were going to have to be patient and that Lawrence might not fully settle into this system until maybe late this year or maybe even next year. Well, it looks like maybe he has hit the acceptance point a little early because the ball is coming out of his hands on time. The simple plays are automatic. There's not that variance that you saw early on in his career. And most importantly, the mistakes have disappeared. Remember, Lawrence had 11 interceptions and 3 lost fumbles in the first 11 games this season. So those problems that he's had his entire career, they were showing up again. And now in this 4-game stretch, he's gone without a single turnover, and that is important. For a team and with a conference this close, you can't make mistakes in the playoffs. And for a team that still leads the league in drops and penalties, that's pretty important. Now, this version of Lawrence, this is what we thought we were going to get. And has he finally turned the corner? Only time will tell. But what Liam Cohen has done in both Tampa and now here in Jacksonville in this short time tells you that maybe this is real. And, it would be one thing if this were just Lawrence playing out of his mind. They've made some changes in the course of this year. The Jacoby Myers trade, which was not some big blockbuster at the trade deadline, that has made a massive difference in their offense. He is everywhere on the field, especially in the middle of the field, and it's allowed other guys to kind of find their roles where they don't have to be the main focus anymore. So the run game still could probably use some work. It's not efficient. They're 19th in yards. They're 26th in yards per carry. But the one thing that they do is that they commit to it. So even though it's not been efficient or successful, defensive coordinators know that they're going to continue to run the ball, and it keeps the offense balanced. And it does 2 things for Lawrence. Keeps him upright and is avoiding sacks, and it allows him to make plays with his legs, and that's certainly what Liam Cohen did on Sunday, dialing up that quarterback draw out of an empty backfield for the go-ahead touchdown. So I think that you are starting to see the confidence in Lawrence. You're having the confidence the coach has in the quarterback, and the real shift also has been that the Jaguars' defense seems like it's for real. And that's where they start to feel dangerous. Like, it's all well and good to have explosive plays on offense, but who can you stop? And that's one of the reasons why everybody was big on the Broncos, is because of their defense. And their defense has not only gotten better, it now has an identity. Their defensive coordinator, Anthony Campanelli, has brought in a very aggressive scheme, exotic zone blitzes, and they have relentless pressure on the quarterback. That was certainly true against Bo Nix back on Sunday. And you look around now and you watch the Jags, and they're not a team that generally is going to be a featured matchup, but they're top 10 in points allowed. They have the best run defense in football, and they've been a takeaway machine. Now, the takeaway thing fluctuates from year to year, but if you want to have a defense that can get stops, 9 forced turnovers in 3 games, that's the same number they had all of last season. This has been a massive change from last year to this year. So that is a sign that this is a defense that will travel come postseason time. Now, they're still in the running for the number 1 seed, but you take a look at some of their wins this year. Just beat the Broncos, they beat the Niners, beat the Chargers, they beat the Chiefs this year, they beat the Colts when the Colts were still pretty good. So do I believe in Jacksonville? Am I putting money on Jacksonville? The honest answer is no, I am not. I'm still skeptical of them because they have a history of kind of letting you down in the big spot. And Trevor Lawrence, I need more than just 6 games or 4 games to truly believe in them. But you take a look, nobody believes in them. And that sometimes is the team that comes out of nowhere, right? Like, out of the teams that have clinched playoff spots right now, Jacksonville is 4 out of 5 in terms of the betting odds. So you take a look at their profile. If you remove the name, I think you could convince yourself that this is the team to beat in the AFC this year. Going to win their division. They're averaging wins by 18 points during the 6-game winning streak. They're averaging 33 points a game since week 9. They have an inroad to the number 1 seed and a first-round bye. And the AFC, this is more of an indictment on that. There's no juggernaut. There's no inevitability. There is an opportunity for somebody to show up and prove it that they are the team to beat. And when we get to the Super Bowl and we know what team in the AFC is there, it's going to be presented as if, well, this was just, we should have known this the whole time. But in the moment, it's kind of hard to identify who that team is. I think what the Jaguars have done here, and they got to keep it going, there's still a couple of weeks left in the regular season, This is the profile of a team that is emerging in the moment that could be dangerous come postseason time. And the Jaguars, while nobody might believe in them right now, come Super Bowl, if they are there, everyone will tell you, you know what? I believed it the entire time, and it was because of the way they beat the Broncos. Okay, so clearly the Jaguars are the NFL good. I don't know if the Dolphins are the NFL bad or the NFL ugly. They could qualify for either. But what I do know is the Dolphins right now find themselves in quarterback jail, and the bars are slammed shut. There's no appeal coming. There's no call from the governor to save them from themselves. They are stuck in a mess of their own making, and they had to know that this was a very real possibility from the minute they handed out that contract to Tua Tagovailoa. And if they didn't know, they were the only ones who couldn't see this downside. Now, to be clear, this is not his fault, Tua's fault per se. He didn't give himself the contract, but this was always the risk. And now the bill is due, and at least we thought that the bill would be due to injury. That has not been the case. He's just not been a very good player. And they always say, if you draft the wrong guy, you set your franchise back 5 years. The Dolphins drafted Tua 5 years ago, and they've never been further away. And a big reason why is that contract. It's not just his poor play. The contract is so much worse than that. And this isn't rehashing about whether they should have given him the contract or not. At this point, that debate is over for all time. It's not a second guess. It's not hindsight is 2020. It was obvious in real time. And there's no good way out now. This is going to be a cautionary tale in NFL circles for the rest of time. Teams try to convince themselves all the time that the quarterback they have, they can make it work with them because the alternative is so expensive to try to find the next guy. The odds are so high and there's no guarantees. So teams hold on to quarterbacks despite their obvious flaws. But there's never been a greater example of a team convincing themselves that they had something that they didn't than the Dolphins and Tua. And now that he's been benched, that tells you everything you need to know about where this is going. Since the moment they drafted him 5th overall, they have done everything they could do to surround him with everything he needed to be successful. With talent, with a coach who believed in him, with playmakers, everything. Now, were they always right? No, they're a dysfunctional organization. But they had to know that despite one good year, that's not the time to go all in on a guy and pay him over $200 million. This is a league where quarterbacks win and you pay them to be solutions. And Tua has never been a solution. He's been a problem that the Dolphins have been trying to solve the entire time. And the reality is Miami is staring at a player that has no trade value, none, unless the Dolphins are willing to eat an obscene amount of money or attach premium draft picks just to get off this guy. So your choices right now are between awful and worse. Would you rather a punch in the face or a kick in the groin? That's where the Dolphins are at right now because of the quarterback they signed. And if they cut him outright, you've heard the numbers by now, they basically owe him $100 million in dead money plus cap penalties that would make it virtually impossible to field a competitive roster in 2026, as if they're going to do that anyway. Even post June 1st, it just spreads the pain. It doesn't remove it. So you're paying elite money for a quarterback who you don't want on your team while also trying to rebuild. It is an impossible situation. And here's the uncomfortable truth that the Dolphins will almost certainly avoid. Next season is already toast, dude. There are no set of circumstances on God's green earth that even if the Dolphins did everything right, would fix things quickly. They are, for a lack of a better word, screwed. This is not a retool situation. This is not try to patch things up and make one more run. This is a complete and utter teardown, and it really should be a tank. This is take your medicine time. You screwed up, you gave the wrong guy the wrong contract, and now there's nothing you can do this offseason that puts them on a real path. Not yet. They're an offseason away from being an offseason away. You can try and twist the numbers any which way you want. They are just cosmetic changes. You do not start being a team that might be able to fix your problems until 2027. And if you delay it, if you just take some of your medicine, you're just kicking the can down the road. So if the Dolphins want to have something anytime soon for an 85-year-old owner, burn it down, clear the books, move off any bad contract, move off players, tear it down to the studs once again. All of that is going to be necessary to get out of the jail that you find themselves in. And sure, doing that, I don't know if Mike McDaniel will be back. I don't know if Champ Kelly's going to be the GM moving forward, and maybe that's on an unfair position to put them in. But fairness is not a priority anymore. Finding a direction should be for Stephen Ross. If he signs off on that kind of reset, and you're going to be terrible in 2026, that's kind of the point. Because 2027 is a draft loaded with quarterbacks. Arch Manning will be there. Sellers will be there. Others certainly will emerge a year from now. But the Dolphins don't matter until at least a year from now. Take your medicine now. There's more than enough medicine to go around. And it's not like 2026 is going to be the only ramifications. You're going to be dealing with this for a while. But the more you try and halfway it, the longer the pain will last. Miami is not a quarterback away by any stretch of the imagination. They are everything away. But at least then they could be positioned with cap flexibility and draft capital and the chance to put the GM and the coach on the right timeline instead of acting desperate all the time. Is it extreme? Absolutely. Will they get criticized? Relentlessly. But this is the only path forward. This is a franchise that has not won a playoff game in 25 years. And they feel like they've always had a plan. They've never had a plan. This is the only plan. The Dolphins didn't just make a bad bet on Tua. They locked themselves into it, and it could not have gone worse any faster, really. The only surprise is this is not about injury. So the only way out is now stop pretending it's not as bad as it is. If they embrace that reality, maybe 2027 might be something. Maybe 2028 might be something. Will they do that? Judging by history, probably not. Whatever the worst set of circumstances could be, that's probably the one that Miami will take. The Dolphins thought that this was a signing tour and a sign that they were finally out of purgatory in the NFL. They didn't realize that they just signed their ticket to NFL jail, and there is no escaping it anytime soon.
Remember college? Well, now, college is over, and here comes your student loan debt. Is your private student loan debt keeping you up at night? You really need to talk to YRefi. YRefi refinances distressed or defaulted private student loans that others won't touch. They can save you thousands of dollars and get you a custom payment that you can afford. And they don't care what your credit score is. Don't let private student loan debt ruin your life. Call YRefi today.
All right, let's get to the NFL ugly, and that would involve the Kansas City Chiefs. The story back on Monday, the Chiefs are moving across state lines, and they're going to build a new dome stadium in the state of Kansas, leaving the state of Missouri and Arrowhead Stadium that they've called home since 1972. And there's been a lot written about this story. It's been going on for a very long time. There's been a lot said. Basically, what you need to know is that the Chiefs just got a better deal from the state of Kansas. It's a way better deal. It's basically a blank check. I don't know what better deal you can get than a blank check. But that's exactly what they got here. And they have been playing these two states off each other for a while. They had great leverage, and they cashed in to the tune of $1.8 billion in public funding from the state of Kansas to build this new stadium. It is the largest public subsidy ever for a sports stadium. And when you hear the government officials talk like they spoke back on Monday, and you hear this all the time, they make it out like this stadium, and this thing's going to pay for itself. What a deal that we struck here. And they'll bring up the fact that taxes are not being raised. The way they're going to generate this revenue is from taxes generated inside the venue. So you go to a game, you buy a jersey, you buy a hat, you buy food, that taxes and that money will go to pay for the stadium. And that's the plan. Of course, if that money doesn't cover it for whatever reason, who do you think is going to be on the hook for the price tag? It's not going to be the Kansas City Chiefs. It's going to be the state of Kansas. Now, the voters of Missouri had a chance to keep the Chiefs. They had a proposal that was voted down. And you might be saying, well, why did the people of Kansas vote to approve this? They didn't. It was never brought to a vote in the state of Kansas. The state officials just did this on their own. And the officials will point to the fact that these taxes are not new taxes. It's simply stuff that is being taxed from inside the venue. And they love that kind of proposal because it almost seems like it's invisible, right? Well, this is not coming out of your pocket. But at the end of the day, it's all public money. Now, you might be thinking, all right, well, that sounds really bad. But for $1.8 billion, the state must be getting some really good, and the revenue, that'll help, right? I mean, that's going to generate an economic boom, right? The roads are going to be better. The schools are going to be better. Not in this case. If you thought that you might be getting something out of this if you lived in the state of Kansas, that's not the case here. The Chiefs are reportedly going to keep essentially 100% of the stadium revenue. I mean, owning an NFL team is a license to print money, and you wonder why. So in terms of tickets or concessions or luxury suites or sponsorships or naming rights or non-football events, right? It's going to be a dome stadium, so they'll have events year-round, concerts and all the like. All of that money, the stadium will technically be publicly owned, but the money is going to be staying with the Chiefs. And while it's publicly owned, and that sounds great on paper, the Chiefs control the building and they control the money. So you might be thinking, well, wait a second, what does Kansas get out of this? Well, they do get rent. They will get rent. The Chiefs will pay rent as a result. They will be paying, I think it's $7 million a year, which I don't know how many years that would have to be to equal $1.8 billion. It feels like a very long time. And that sounds okay, right? Well, at least they get something. But that rent, it doesn't go where you think it goes. It doesn't go back into the state's general fund. It doesn't help offset the billions of dollars in public costs. It's basically going to go into a stadium operations fund that the Chiefs obviously will control and will cover things like staffing or security or upkeep of the stadium. So even in this case, the team is basically paying rent to itself to help pay its own bills. Again, it's a great deal if you can get it. And this is, for the Chiefs, this is a home run. I know that's not a football analogy. This is a home run. And let's talk about the part that really matters, the risk versus the reward. You know, you would think they'll always bring up this term, partnership. This is a partnership between the team and the state. Well, you would think that the partnership would be, you know, things would be balanced out between the two sides. Kansas takes all the risk here, and the Chiefs basically get all the reward. That's not 50-50. That's the opposite of 50-50. So if the tax revenues fall short, Kansas is going to be on the hook for that. If the construction costs rise over time, again, this stadium isn't expected to be open until 2031, Kansas is going to be on the hook for this. And if the promised economic boom, which there have been countless studies that prove that these type of stadium deals don't result in the type of things that are being projected, Kansas will be on the hook. Meanwhile, if you're the Chiefs on this side of things, think about the deal this is. Get a brand new dome stadium, you get full control of the revenue streams, you get long-term stability, and a modern NFL cash machine. Again, this is a license to print money, and this is not new. So there is a non-relocation clause, which means, all right, well, the Chiefs will have to stay there, and they'll promise not to leave. But even that, the penalties shrink over time, and I think it's within 15 years, they disappear altogether. So like a decade and a half from now, the team could pull this same kind of thing again, and taxpayers would be on the hook for paying off the stadium that's already there. And another key point for fans who might not, care about like sports business, this is not about liking the Chiefs or liking their players. As I've said, I'm ecstatic that the Chiefs are not going to be in. Think about that. A playoff run without Patrick Mahomes, without having to see Taylor Swift. But this is about leverage. This is what this is about. Kansas and Missouri were both bidding against each other, and it was a win-win for the team. The politicians didn't want to be the ones who were remembered for losing out on the Chiefs, and the team weaponized that in the best way they can. When a franchise has that kind of leverage, when billionaires have that kind of leverage, this is kind of what it looks like. So I can't really blame the Chiefs all that much, but it's not a good deal for the state of Kansas because the public and the people live there, they're the ones that write the check and the team keeps the profits. It's an amazing deal if you're on the side of the team. So when the officials, and they always do this, oh, this thing's going to pay for itself. This is a win-win. This is going to transform the local economy. You'll always hear that one. This is going to transform the local economy. Just understand what that actually means. The benefits, they are projected, right? Like they're projecting this. The cost, they're guaranteed, and the team is going to keep that. And if you're a casual fan wondering why people raise eyebrows at this kind of deal, that's why. You're getting billions and billions in public money, and there is minimal direct return, and nearly all the upside flows to the team. And it's amazing how many people defend the team in this kind of situation. And there have been hundreds of economic studies that show that the revenues that they're projected to make, they never deliver on that. They never say what they're going to do. They don't create as many jobs or income or tax revenue. The only people who actually get rich from this type of thing are the people who own the stadium. And in this case, It's the Hunt family, who are worth a projected $25 billion. So, call it smart business if you want. I guess you have to call it smart business. They had a perfect situation between two sides, and they played it like a fiddle. But the taxpayer side of this does not feel like a partnership. This is not what partnerships should feel like. This is a very one-sided deal that if you're the Chiefs, you can't lose. But for everyone else, it seems like you can't win. And you might be thinking, well, this is just how the NFL sausage is made. Teams are looking for new stadiums all the time because of the revenue stream. And this is probably no worse than other deals that have come down. So I actually thought, let's compare what this looks like, right? You might be thinking, well, every stadium deal is bad for taxpayers. And what makes this one all that much different? Well, that's a fair question. So I decided to do a little comparison, looking at other deals that have come along here the last few years that maybe you've forgotten about or never heard about at the time. The one that popped up most is the Raiders Stadium, Allegiant Stadium. I think everyone remembers that one because the Vegas, to sway the Raiders, were trying to get a deal in LA. They couldn't get that. They were left out. They didn't want to go back to Oakland. So Vegas put up $750 million in public funding, which is a huge number, 750. But the difference there is the Raiders, yes, they do pay rent for the stadium to the stadium authority. They share certain revenues as well. And the public entity actually receives money. So the team is actually pay that helps service the debt that the city of Las Vegas took on. Now, is that deal still controversial? It was at the time, but there is it might not be a 50-50 partnership, but it's a whole lot closer. At least the public gets some real direct revenue streams that are tied to the building. That does not exist in the deal with the Chiefs moving to Kansas. That one is at least somewhat comparable, and it's still not as bad. I mean, the money is basically double what the Chiefs are going to get. The other new stadiums, well, you have the Rams Stadium, SoFi Stadium in LA. That one cost over $5 billion, but that one was pretty simple. That's pretty clean because no public money went into it. Stan Kroenke, the owner of the Rams, who also left Missouri, he paid for the entire thing himself. So that's what every NFL owner can do. And he gets to keep the revenue. And no, I don't think anybody has a problem with that. He paid for the entire building. Now, maybe there's some things that the city handed him, but he took the risk, and the taxpayers are not involved in that. He paid for the stadium, which all of these owners can do. Again, the Hunts are worth $25 billion. And the Rams Stadium, that's the cleanest model. Kansas, meanwhile, is paying out $1.8 billion without owning any possible upside. Again, this is the deal that they were willing to strike to get them to cross state lines, and they eventually cracked, and they got the deal done. And I guess at the end of the day, winning is the only thing that matters, but I don't know how much longer this is going to be viewed as a win down the road. Now, other stadiums, the Dallas Stadium, Jerry World, the city owns the building there. The Cowboys do pay rent. And Arlington, the city of Arlington, they share in the revenue from other major events outside of Cowboys games. In that stadium, they can host events all year round. So that one wasn't cheap. Again, I think that one was a couple of $2 billion. But again, it's a better balance. No one's saying it's a perfect deal or it's a great deal, but at least there was some give and take. The Cowboys were never going to leave Dallas. And I think the best one here that shows you, the Chargers, when they were looking to move to LA and wanted to get a stadium in San Diego done, the city refused to do that and just kind of put all the risk on the taxpayers and leave all the profit with the team. That's essentially what the Chargers were asking for, the same thing that the Chiefs are getting. And the Chargers left. And the uncomfortable truth is that the politicians might not like to admit this, but San Diego didn't collapse. San Diego seems like it's still doing just fine. Life went on. The city still exists. And they're not on the hook for this. And the Chargers killed their fan base. Like they are such a distant second place in LA to the Rams, living and residing in a building that doesn't feel like it's 50-50 either. So really what makes this Chiefs deal different, when you line up all these different stadiums over the years, this one becomes crystal clear. In most NFL stadium deals, at least one of the things is true, right? Like the team pays significant rent, not just $7 million, which just gets funneled back to the team. or the public shares in the revenue, or the public investment is capped at a certain number, or the team assumes some of the risk, most of the risk. That is not the case here at all. In this deal, Kansas basically puts up the money. They pay billions of dollars. They take on long-term financial risk, right? $1.8 billion, assuming that the stadium costs don't go up from there. And they get modest rent that doesn't meaningfully share in the revenue at all. And the team gets to keep 100% of the money that is raised by the stadium through football and everything else. So the Chiefs almost would be crazy to turn this kind of deal down. I mean, they control the building, they control the money. They face very little downside. Now, the stadium's not going to open until 2031. I don't know what type of team the Chiefs are going to have in 2031. But the deal that they made, that combination is very rare. And that's why people are calling this deal unusually slanted. And maybe it was the perfect storm because they're willing to move, which most teams are not wanting to go through that. And they're moving across state lines. But the state did get one thing. They got a luxury box. Now, they do, in events where they use the luxury box, they do have to pay for their own food. But still, very shrewd negotiators. So to recap, this deal isn't about, it's not about whether stadium deals are good or bad. It's pretty clear at this point that they never live up to the economic projections that they are touted at when these kind of deals are announced. And look, Kansas wanted to win. Missouri didn't want to lose another pro football teams. But what this shows you is when both sides are afraid, the team writes the rules, and they write the rules very much in their favor. And that's what happened here with the Kansas City Chiefs. All right, that is going to do it for another episode of Gordon Damer on Sports. If I didn't say it already, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. We'll be back next week with a fresh edition. And if you've not done it already, please hit that subscribe button. It really does help out the podcast. And we'll be seeing much more of you in 2026. Thanks for watching.